One act of spite, one moment of blind rage, one miscalculated move. That's all it takes to separate vengeful plotters from becoming victims of their own twisted schemes. Their stories prove that careful planning and burning hatred mean nothing when revenge decides to turn on its master. It was May 14, 2016. Humid air hung over a Midwest subdivision as crews prepared work around an 8-foot excavation. Reed Foster, 41, had 15 years in residential construction. As site supervisor, he was methodical and safety-focused. 3 weeks earlier, he had fired concrete foreman Mark Delano after a heated confrontation over overtime pay demands. During the termination meeting, Delano made threatening statements about making Reed pay for the firing. Security cameras captured the exchange, and witnesses later testified to the threats. Following his termination, Mark Delano sent increasingly hostile text messages to Reed's phone. The messages escalated from complaints about destroyed livelihood to surveillance threats and references to construction site accidents. Reed had reported the threats to his supervisor but hadn't involved the police. The morning's concrete pour was scheduled for 6:30 a.m., requiring 80 cubic yards. A security camera recorded the work zone continuously. At 6:42 a.m., footage clearly showed Mark Delano removing 2 diagonal bracing boards from the eastern wall, supports critical to stabilizing that section of the excavation under load. Despite being terminated, Delano had retained his hard hat and safety vest. With the early morning start and minimal supervision on site, he was able to blend in with the crew without being immediately challenged. He systematically removed the critical support beams before leaving. Reed descended alone to inspect rebar placement, a routine check before major pours. Above, the concrete truck's chute extended over the excavation. Reed carried his standard inspection clipboard. Unaware that the excavation's structural integrity had been compromised, Reed continued his inspection moments before the concrete pour was scheduled to begin. Loose soil and debris from the collapsing wall surged around his boots, pinning his legs against the rebar. The eastern wall collapsed without warning. Unsupported soil cascaded inward, striking Reed's legs and pelvis with tremendous force. The impact pinned his lower body against rebar as tons of compacted earth continued pouring in, trapping him completely. In the seconds following the collapse, the concrete pour continued momentarily, before workers recognized the failure. With slurry already flowing into the compromised excavation, concrete was poured into the collapsed trench, compounding the soil burial and increasing the crushing pressure against Reed's lower body. The mixture's density created crushing pressure as he struggled unsuccessfully to free himself. Reed's movements became increasingly restricted as compacted soil and concrete slurry compressed his torso. Combined soil and concrete weight crushed his ribcage, making breathing increasingly difficult. His struggles only drove him deeper as the mixture continued rising around his shoulders. The weight became unbearable as the mixture rose high against his upper torso. Security footage showed Reed becoming motionless as rising concrete and compacted soil compressed his chest and airway. The pour continued for several seconds before workers noticed something was wrong and shouted for the truck to stop. Crew members rushed toward the excavation. Emergency crews arrived within 12 minutes, but the concrete had already begun stiffening, complicating rescue efforts. Recovery required jackhammers and cutting equipment. Reed was extracted after 47 minutes, but resuscitation efforts failed. The coroner determined death by compressive asphyxia with blunt force trauma. Security footage confirmed deliberate bracing removal caused the structural failure. Cell phone records placed Mark Delano at the construction site during the sabotage window, contradicting his alibi. After a 6-month investigation, Mark Delano was arrested and charged under a premeditated homicide statute. During the trial, prosecutors presented the threatening text messages, security footage, and witness testimony. Delano was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The court cited overwhelming evidence of premeditation and intent, concluding that the killing resulted from a deliberate act carried out after a workplace grievance. It was July 22, 2015, when a relentless heat wave gripped the Southwest, pushing temperatures beyond 103 degrees Fahrenheit. The asphalt in a strip mall parking lot radiated waves of heat that distorted the air above its surface. Lila Hart, 29, worked as an assistant manager at a small childcare facility in the strip mall. Known for meticulous attention to detail, Lila had built a reputation for never overlooking safety protocols. 2 weeks earlier, she had filed a formal complaint against a coworker for repeatedly leaving children unattended, resulting in the employee's suspension. That afternoon, Lila parked her dark blue sedan in direct sunlight. Earlier that afternoon, Lila had been temporarily responsible for the 2 toddlers, ages 18 months and 2 years, following an early pickup request. They remained secured in rear-facing car seats when she returned to the strip mall. Exterior security cameras from surrounding businesses captured the parking lot throughout the afternoon. Lila entered the building to complete end-of-shift responsibilities. Inside the air-conditioned building, she worked methodically through her checklist while exterior temperature continued climbing. The sealed vehicle began heating rapidly. Within minutes, interior temperatures surged past 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Subsequent forensic reconstruction determined the children began showing early signs of heat distress within minutes. After approximately 20 minutes, Lila emerged from the building and approached her vehicle, already showing signs of heat stress. The recording showed her fumbling with her key fob and attempting the door handle before staggering beside the driver's door. Her movements became increasingly unsteady as she collapsed onto the superheated asphalt, losing consciousness. The vehicle's driver's side door lock had been deliberately disabled, preventing it from being opened using the key fob. Impaired by heat and sedation, Lila did not attempt alternate entry. Recording continued as heat levels inside reached critical temperatures. The children's movements became more labored as interior temperature climbed toward 140 degrees Fahrenheit. No intervention occurred during the critical window when rescue might have been possible. A customer discovered the scene 25 minutes after Lila's collapse and immediately contacted emergency services. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes, but found all 3 victims unresponsive. Despite aggressive cooling measures, all were pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner determined Lila's cause of death was heat-related collapse, complicated by ingestion of a sedating substance that impaired her thermoregulation and mobility. Investigators later determined the sedative had been administered earlier that day through a shared beverage container kept in the staff break area. Toxicology revealed the presence of a sedating compound inconsistent with Lila's medical history. Investigation revealed the suspended co-worker, Carl Smith, 34, had accessed Lila's vehicle using a copied key fob obtained during his employment. Security footage confirmed Smith's presence in the parking lot during lunch hour. During interrogation, inconsistencies in Smith's statements, combined with surveillance footage and forensic evidence, led investigators to determine he had planned to incapacitate Lila and stage a public rescue. He intended to humiliate her professionally while positioning himself as the hero, hoping to get his job back. Smith claimed he was unaware the children were still inside the vehicle and had miscalculated the drug dosage. When he saw Lila collapse, he panicked and fled. Carl Smith was arrested and charged with multiple counts, including second-degree murder and felony manslaughter. He was later convicted and sentenced to multiple life terms in state prison, to be served consecutively. The child care facility closed permanently. Exterior security footage, vehicle data logs, and forensic findings provided crucial evidence confirming the deliberate nature of the crime. It was March 11, 2017, when a stretch of rural Texas highway became the scene of a fatal collision that would expose the deadly consequences of road rage. The 2-lane asphalt cut through open farmland under clear afternoon skies, with visibility extending for miles in both directions. Light traffic moved steadily at posted speeds, the kind of peaceful drive that should have been routine. Colin Webb, a 27-year-old warehouse supervisor, was behind the wheel of his sedan heading home from work. Known for his quick temper and stubborn streak, Colin had just finished a heated roadside confrontation with Victor Cross over aggressive tailgating and excessive horn use. The argument had ended with both drivers returning to their vehicles, but Colin's anger hadn't cooled. His car was equipped with a forward-facing dash camera that recorded the incident and was later recovered from the vehicle by investigators. Traffic behind Colin included a pickup truck towing a utility trailer, maintaining proper following distance at approximately 55 miles per hour. The trailer added significant weight and momentum to the combination, requiring extended braking distances on the flat highway. Other vehicles traveled in both directions, creating a typical afternoon traffic pattern for the rural route. Without warning, Colin suddenly slammed his brakes in an intentional brake check, a retaliatory act meant to punish Victor Cross after their roadside confrontation. his sedan decelerated rapidly from highway speed, forcing the trailing pickup driver to react instantly. The pickup entered hard ABS braking as the driver attempted an emergency stop, but the heavy trailer's momentum caused the entire combination to jackknife. The out-of-control pickup struck Collins' rear bumper with tremendous force, launching his sedan forward into the oncoming traffic lane. An approaching SUV, traveling at full highway speed, had no time to avoid the collision. The SUV struck Collins' car broadside on the driver's side, crushing the driver's side door inward by approximately a foot. The side impact drove the door frame and dashboard directly into Collins' chest and head, causing severe trauma. The force of the collision spun his vehicle across both lanes before it came to rest perpendicular to traffic flow. Emergency responders arrived within 20 minutes, but Collins was pronounced dead at the scene from his injuries. The dash camera footage provided investigators with a complete record of the incident, clearly showing Collins' sudden brake application and the resulting collision sequence. The Texas Department of Public Safety ruled the death resulted from reckless driving and road rage retaliation. The pickup driver survived with minor injuries, while the SUV occupants required hospitalization but recovered. The footage ended with Collins' sedan immobilized across both lanes, a stark reminder of how quickly aggressive driving can turn fatal. Skid marks stretched over 200 feet behind the pickup truck, while debris from both vehicles scattered across the roadway for nearly 100 yards. The highway remained closed for 4 hours as investigators documented the scene and cleared the wreckage. After investigators completed their review, Collins' family authorized the release of the dash camera footage as part of a campaign against aggressive driving behaviors. The coroner's report confirmed that Collins died instantly from blunt force trauma to the chest and head, with no evidence of alcohol or drugs in his system at the time of the crash. His death certificate listed the cause of death as blunt force trauma due to a motor vehicle collision, with the manner of death ruled accidental under traffic fatality classification, despite evidence of reckless retaliatory driving. Victor Cross was later questioned but not charged, as investigators determined Collins' retaliatory brake check was the initiating act that caused the fatal chain reaction. It was June 29, 2015, when a private backyard pool in Central Florida became the scene of a fatal incident rooted in deliberate retaliation. The home belonged to Grant Shelby, a 34-year-old construction foreman hosting a weekend gathering with friends and co-workers. Grant was known for his competitive nature and his tendency to settle conflicts publicly. Days earlier, during a crowded restaurant outing, he had confronted longtime friend Cade Miller over unpaid money, accusing him loudly and refusing to lower his voice. Several people witnessed the exchange. Cade left humiliated and angry. Grant's backyard featured an older residential in-ground pool installed before modern safety retrofits were common. While the pool had been updated cosmetically, its circulation system still relied on a single main drain connected to a high-powered pump. The drain was fitted with an anti-entrapment cover, but the system lacked a secondary drain or automatic vacuum release. Grant had delayed replacing the equipment due to cost. Cade arrived early to the gathering while Grant was inside preparing food. Security cameras mounted near the rear patio later showed Cade walking directly to the pool equipment area. He shut off the breaker briefly, removed the anti-entrapment drain cover using a handheld tool, then restored power to the pump before leaving the area. Investigators later determined this was done deliberately, disabling the pool's primary safety safeguard. When Grant emerged minutes later, he entered the pool without hesitation. He swam toward the deep end, diving beneath the surface. As he passed over the exposed main drain, the pump's suction pulled his upper thigh and hip firmly against the opening. Without a cover to distribute pressure, the vacuum sealed his body in place. Grant struggled immediately. Water churned violently around the drain as he attempted to push away, but the suction force, measured later during testing, was strong enough to pin an adult body underwater. His movements were visible from the surface, but several guests initially assumed he was holding his breath or playing. Within seconds, Grant's movements weakened. The suction prevented him from surfacing or repositioning. By the time guests recognized the distress and rushed to the pool's edge, nearly a minute had passed. One person attempted to pull him free but was unable to overcome the force. Another ran to the equipment panel and shut off the pump. Once suction released, Grant was lifted from the water and laid on the pool deck. CPR was initiated while emergency services were called. Paramedics arrived within 12 minutes, but Grant could not be revived. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner ruled the cause of death as drowning due to mechanical body entrapment. Investigators recovered footage showing Cade removing the drain cover and restoring power to the system. Interviews confirmed Cade's motive stemmed from the public humiliation days earlier. There was no evidence the act was accidental or intended as a joke. Cade Miller was arrested and later convicted on charges including reckless homicide. He was sentenced to 25 years in state prison. Authorities noted that while death may not have been his stated goal, the act was deliberate, targeted, and carried out with clear disregard for human life. Grant Shelby's death prompted renewed scrutiny of older residential pool systems across the county. Officials emphasized that deliberate tampering with safety equipment, especially for revenge, can turn ordinary environments into fatal traps within seconds. It was January 8, 2018, inside a mid-rise apartment building in New Jersey. A fourth-floor concrete hallway sat under harsh fluorescent lights, winter air seeping through poorly sealed windows as a ceiling-mounted security camera recorded the space. Natalie Pierce, a 39-year-old office administrator, lived in apartment 4B and had been engaged in an ongoing dispute with her neighbor over noise complaints. Known for her meticulous nature and tendency to document grievances, Natalie had filed multiple complaints with building management about loud music and late-night disturbances. Mara Stone, her neighbor in 4C, had grown increasingly frustrated with the constant complaints and decided to retaliate. The apartment doors featured hydraulic self-closing mechanisms designed to ensure proper closure while preventing slamming, with adjustable tension settings controlled by a small valve. Earlier that day, while Natalie was at work, Mara Stone had accessed the hallway and tampered with the door closer mechanism on apartment 4B. Security footage later showed her adjusting the hydraulic valve to maximum tension, significantly increasing the force with which the door would close. The modification was intended as harassment, designed to create an annoyingly loud slam whenever Natalie entered or exited her apartment. That evening, Natalie returned home from work carrying groceries and wearing a heavy winter coat. She unlocked her apartment door and stepped inside to set down her bags, before immediately exiting again to check her mailbox. As she stepped into the hallway, the modified door mechanism engaged with excessive force, slamming shut much faster and harder than normal. The door slammed shut with abnormal speed and force as Natalie stepped into the hallway. The unexpected acceleration caused her to misstep and twist off balance, leaving her unable to brace as she fell backward. Encumbered by her winter coat and grocery bags, she was unable to brace as her head struck the unforgiving surface with a sharp impact that echoed through the hallway. The security camera captured the entire sequence, showing the door's abnormally aggressive closure and Natalie's subsequent fall. A neighbor discovered Natalie unconscious in the hallway approximately 20 minutes later and immediately called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes but found no pulse. She was pronounced dead at the scene from severe blunt force head trauma. The medical examiner determined that the impact had caused fatal brain injury. Security footage provided investigators with clear evidence of both the door tampering and the fatal incident. Police arrested Mara Stone on charges of involuntary manslaughter after building maintenance confirmed the hydraulic mechanism had been deliberately altered beyond manufacturer safety specifications. Mara Stone later pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 8 years in state prison, followed by supervised release. Natalie's death became a case study cited in building safety advisories, highlighting how deliberate tampering driven by personal retaliation can turn ordinary residential spaces deadly. It was July 4, 2016, at a lakeside campground in Michigan. The evening was warm and still, campfires lining the shoreline as quiet settled over the beach and scattered tents near the water. Natalie Pierce, a 22-year-old retail worker, had been camping at the lakeside site for the holiday weekend. Known for her impulsive nature and quick temper, Natalie had engaged in a heated argument earlier that evening with Felix Smith over his loud music that continued well past quiet hours. The dispute had ended without resolution, leaving both campers frustrated and angry. Natalie decided to retaliate by setting off fireworks near Felix's tent, hoping to disturb his sleep. She had purchased consumer-grade fireworks from a roadside stand, but had improperly modified them by shortening the fuse and damaging the casing, compromising the device's designed delay and stability. A smartphone had been left recording at her campsite to capture lake footage for social media. The campground remained relatively quiet as other campers settled in for the night. Natalie retrieved one of the modified fireworks from her supplies, a cylindrical device approximately 6 inches long that had been designed for safe aerial display. Her alterations compromised the fuse timing and structural integrity, making the device unpredictable and prone to premature detonation. She positioned herself near the water's edge, approximately 30 feet from Felix's tent, planning to light the firework and throw it toward the shoreline to create maximum noise and disruption. Natalie ignited the fuse with a lighter, expecting the standard 3-second delay before detonation. However, the modified firework malfunctioned immediately due to the removed safety wrapping. Instead of the planned delay, the device detonated almost immediately after ignition, exploding while still in her hand. The explosion created a bright flash visible across the campground, followed by a sharp crack that echoed off the water. Fragments from the fireworks struck Natalie's neck and upper chest, causing catastrophic soft tissue damage and rapid external bleeding. She collapsed onto the sandy beach and rapidly lost consciousness as blood loss progressed. The smartphone continued recording from its fixed position, capturing the flash of the explosion, the sound, and Natalie's collapse. Other campers rushed to the scene within minutes, but Natalie had already lost consciousness from massive blood loss. Emergency services were called immediately, but the remote campground location meant a 25-minute response time for paramedics. Natalie was pronounced dead at the scene before medical help could arrive. The medical examiner determined the cause of death as exsanguination from multiple penetrating wounds. The smartphone recording provided investigators with clear evidence of the firework ignition and subsequent explosion. Police determined that Natalie had improperly modified the consumer fireworks, removing safety features that led to the premature detonation. The investigation determined the incident stemmed from retaliation against Felix Smith, who was questioned but not charged. The medical examiner ruled the manner of death accidental, citing improper handling and modification of consumer fireworks. Natalie's death became a cautionary example of how amateur pyrotechnic alterations can turn celebratory devices into deadly weapons. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.